Welcome to another video on OpenShift. In this video, I will talk about how to deploy a web application with persistent storage. So generally containers are meant for getting instantiated and then get some work done and then deleted. But in the past few years, things have changed and the containers have become more and more powerful and useful and meaningful. And there was a need for storing data in a persistent storage so that containers can use it without getting dropped off. So in this video, we are going to create a web application the same way we did before. Refer to my earlier video on how to create a web application in OpenShift using YAML files. There is a reference to that video in the description section. So now let's get started. So here is the GitHub page I put together for this video, and it has several YAML files, and you must be very familiar with these YAML files from the previous video, but there are some new ones. So we will be creating a new namespace, and then we will import the image stream and build configuration into OpenShift. And then we will let the OpenShift build the web application. And then before we deploy a pod, we will do a couple of new things. We will be creating what is called a persistent volume object, and then a persistent volume claim object. And then mention the persistent volume claim reference in the deployment configuration YAML file. And then we shall deploy that deployment configuration and then let the pod be created. We will go into the pod to examine whether the persistent volume got created in it or not. Should be. And we will also be accessing the host itself and see if the corresponding persistent storage volume got created in it as well. So let's do that. So first of all, let's create a namespace. So I'm going to create a namespace. I'm creating a namespace called my project. And then I'm going to apply the image stream YAML file. You must have seen this before. Let me apply. So the image stream got created. And now I'm going to import the build configuration YAML file. So now the build configuration is imported. I'm going to wait for the parts to be created. So the build pod is running. We are going to wait for it to complete. And as we did before, we can always look at the logs of this build pod. And it is still doing its job. Let's wait for it to complete. And as you can see, it is moving forward. when the build configuration is completed, we are going to note down the image registry reference. We will be using that to update the DC YAML file, the deployment configuration YAML file. So let's wait for a moment. When the build is complete, there it is. So the build is done. The image got successfully inserted into the image registry, and here is the image registry URL. And we will go and update the deployment configuration file. Okay, so we are done. So now the next step is, before we move on to import deployment configuration to perform deployment, we have to do a few things, as I mentioned a moment ago. The first thing we need to do is the persistent volume object. So here is the YAML file. The kind is persistent volume, and we are going to create an object called myVolume, and that myVolume will refer to the MNT PV data Sridhar directory on the host. And we will be reserving about 100 gig for this persistent volume. So this is basically create a volume on the host under this path, MNT PV data, and then mark it as read write. You can do anything you want. You can read, you can write, you can do whatever. So let's do that now. So the persistent volume object got imported. The next step is to import the persistent volume claim object. So here it is. This persistent volume claim is an object that will define what should be the characteristics of this volume with respect to the pod. So there's nothing interesting in it, but the only thing is the volume name, the myVolume that we inserted before. This is the persistent volume. So now let's import this persistent volume claim. Now this got imported. So now how do we use it in our pod? So I modified the deployment configuration YAML file to add a reference to the my new storage claim, persistent volume claim. So let's look at the dc.yaml file. So here it is. Under the volume section and under spec, I added an entry for this persistent volume claim. And that is it. That is the only thing I did to include this. And there should be another entry, the volume mount. So when the persistent volume claim is included into the pod, where it should be referenced inside the pod itself. So inside the pod, the volume will be mounted under the root itself with a name called new-Sridhar. We're going to look at the whole thing in detail. So in bottom line is we need to add this volume section under spec and also volume mount section under containers section under specs of the deployment configuration. So now we are going to apply or import the deployment configuration YAML file. So now let's wait for a couple of pods to be created and completed. One of them will be the deployment pod itself. The other one is the application pod. So as you can see, the previously done build pod is completed. The deployment pod is running, and it has successfully created the application pod as well. Let's wait for the whole thing to be okay. So I think it's done. The deployment is done. The application is also running successfully. So now let's do a few things. Let us SSH into the host itself. So this is how I SSH into the host itself. And let's go and see where the directory got created. So it should be under mnt pv data. So there you can see the last directory, the Sridhar, got created there. And then let's get out of this place. And now let us SSH into the pod itself. That is RSH. The pod is my Flask app old one PCVQT. And this should be under the root itself. As you can see, the new Sridhar directory got created. So the volume got mounted inside the pod as well, and it is persisting under the host under the mnt pv data Sridhar directory. So this is how you create and attach a persistent volume to your containers. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and in a future video we'll talk more about OpenShift, and we'll keep moving. And thanks for watching, and bye for now.